Judith Butler and the Performativity of Gender. Judith Butler, a leading figure in contemporary philosophy, has revolutionized the study of gender and identity through her groundbreaking theory of gender performativity. This concept, primarily developed in Gender Trouble, 1990, and Bodies That Matter, 1993, challenges traditional understandings of gender as a fixed, biological reality. Instead, Butler argues that gender is not something we are born with, but rather something we perform through repeated actions, behaviors, and societal expectations. Central to Butler's argument is the idea that gender is a social construct, not a natural or essential trait. She critiques the essentialist view of gender, which assumes that being male or female is an inherent characteristic tied to biological sex. Instead, she builds on the work of Michel Foucault, who explored how discourse and power shape identity, and J.L. Austin, who developed the concept of performative speech, ACTS, statements that do something rather than simply describe reality. Butler extends this idea to gender, asserting that gender is constituted through social performances, rather than being a pre-existing identity. A key implication of Butler's theory is that there is no fixed or authentic gender identity behind these performances. What we perceive as stable categories, man or woman, are actually effects of repeated social behaviors. This means that gender is fluid and contingent, open to change and redefinition. One of Butler's most significant contributions is her critique of heteronormativity, the assumption that heterosexuality is the default or natural state of human relationships. She argues that gender norms are enforced through societal institutions, language, and cultural practices, reinforcing a binary that privileges heterosexual relationships while marginalizing queer identities. Her work has had a profound impact on queer theory, challenging the ways in which sexual orientation and gender identity are regulated by society. In addition to questioning gender categories, Butler critiques traditional feminist thought that assumes woman is a stable and universal category. She argues that feminism should move beyond rigid identity politics, as defining a single category of women often excludes non-binary, transgender, and racially diverse experiences. This has sparked debates within feminist circles, with some critics arguing that her deconstruction of gender identity weakens collective feminist activism. Despite these criticisms, Butler's work has significantly influenced LGBTQ+ rights movements, gender studies, and feminist philosophy. Her insights have helped to validate trans and non-binary identities, providing a theoretical foundation for challenging legal and societal norms that enforce gender binaries. Beyond gender theory, Butler has expanded her focus to ethics, politics, and human vulnerability. In Precarious Life, 2004, and Frames of War, 2009, she examines how certain lives are considered more valuable than others, particularly in the context of war, terrorism, and state violence. She argues that precarity, the condition of being socially and politically vulnerable, affects marginalized groups disproportionately, reinforcing global inequalities. Her later works explore resistance and nonviolence as political strategies. In The Force of Nonviolence, 2020, Butler contends that violence is often justified as self-defense, which perpetuates cycles of oppression. She calls for solidarity-based activism, where diverse communities unite to challenge injustice without relying on rigid identity categories. Despite criticism that her writing is complex and inaccessible, Butler's influence remains profound. Her work has reshaped discussions in philosophy, gender studies, critical theory, and activism, offering new ways to understand identity, power, and resistance.